Good afternoon. My name is Tate Mohwe. I'm the MEC for Education in the province of the Free State. We want to use this opportunity to wish the best to the class of 2022. And today we are launching a program that is meant to support all the young people, the class of 2022. But we also want to encourage those who are in grade 10 also to listen, to the grade 11 also to listen, and indeed the grade 12s. This is going to be a very, very exciting program, and we wish you that you all listen to all the broadcasts. We're going to have a total of 40 lessons over a period of 40 days. We'll be starting today with our tips for study tips. That will be presented by some of our best teachers in the province. And then we'll be broadcasting on radio, online, and I'm told also on YouTube. The YouTube phase apparently will come a little bit later, but in fact today. So we really are very excited because we really want you to work hard. This is your year, and you are a group of learners that was fully affected by COVID-19. And then that is why we had to do everything to ensure that we close all the gaps that have been created by COVID-19. But you're also lucky because last year you had the whole year, you were able to study for the full year in grade 11, and then even this year you were able to study for the full year. And that's why I'm confident that the Free State is going to give us 90% pass rate straight on. All of you, we trust you, we believe you. We know your teachers have been dedicated, working very hard to give you the necessary support. We know the parents have been playing their role also in terms of supporting all the learners in grade 12. So go for it. Get the support. Everybody's supporting you. Some of our best teachers are going to present. Subject advisors are going to present. So you now can't complain. You have the support from your teacher, but the support from other teachers. And be sure that some of the teachers that we're presenting here are also examiners. Some of the teachers that will be presenting here are markers. So they know when they give you a tip in terms of exam tip, you must know that exam tip is very, very important. Sometimes we have seen that learners don't fail because they don't have enough content, but they fail because they don't know how to deal or how to answer a particular question. So this program is meant to deal with all those weaknesses and give you the support and give you all the skills so that you become what we all know in the Free State, simply the best. So work hard. We are very, very excited. Make sure that you get as many distinctions as possible. Never aim low. Aim very, very high. Minimum, you must have 5 distinctions. Those who are good. But if you think that is difficult, you can get 4. But never aim for no distinctions. I think it's very, very important. You will also be following us on community radio stations, following us on things like WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, and stuff like that. So I think that nobody can complain that they've not been supported. So grade 12, good luck. Simply the best, be number 1. Be the best that you can be. And I know that I'll be wearing a white suit when the minister announces the results on the 19th of January. In fact, the suit will be worn on the 20th of January. We'll be celebrating you, and good luck with your careers at university, at institutions of higher learning. In whatever your dreams are, you can be able to achieve them. Thank you, and good luck.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will be starting the presentations with this new program for the community radio stations and also the social media. We are starting today with study tips. I am Mme Pfiser. I am a grade 12 life orientation teacher from Brebner High School, and I will be guiding you through some study tips to ensure that you can be the best that you can be. So today we're going to start with, you have to start preparing early. It is imperative that if you have not started studying, that you start as soon as possible. Because if we start earlier, it means that our workload towards the end gets less and less. So if we think about it, before I can start, I have to make sure that I'm organized, that I have all my notes, all my textbooks, all my things ready, in the fact that I have to start studying as soon as possible. So it's very, very important that we have everything that we need ready and available to us if I just reach out for it. It is also imperative that we do not cram any of our work, because if I cram, I am going to forget it as soon as I finish studying. So you are setting yourself up for failure if you cram the day before. The day before is meant for revision only. The earlier you start, the better prepared you'll be, and the earlier you start, the more breaks you'll be able to take throughout your study session. It is also important that you set up a study plan. So we are going to talk about setting up a study plan first of all. If we look at a study plan, it is important that I take my diary, or I take a planner, or I use a calendar, or one of those monthly calendars that I can see at one glance, and use that to set up your study plan. Study plan is not just for during the exams. It starts now already. It started already, actually, but it is really, really important that you have a study plan so that you have a plan in order for you to be able to succeed. If I have a study plan, I know exactly what is expected of me, on which days, and exactly when I can take my breaks, and that way I am better prepared at all times. So make sure that the day before an exam is written for any subject, that day is reserved for revision for that specific subject that will be written the next day only. That day should not be used for study for any other subject, because you are going to confuse yourself. So it is really, really important that we focus that day on only revising for the subject of the next day. And you notice that I say revise and not study, because your studying should be done by then. You should only be revising the day before an exam. Set out time slots per subject, meaning on Wednesday I am going to start studying for the first paper that I'm going to be writing. And in that way, I know that I have 6 to 8 hours on that day specifically to study. I can set up 2 or 3 subjects per day if I feel like it. But it is important that you set out the time slots per subject on your study plan. It is also important that you indicate when a break should be taken, because it is so important that we take breaks in between. We will talk about taking breaks in a little while, but it is important that you note on your study plan that you will be taking breaks at certain times. Color code per subject, if that's going to make it easier for you to see at a glance exactly what you have to study. I've always found that color coding things makes it easier, because I know that if English is color coded in pink, every time I see pink on my study plan, that means I have to study English on that day. So if you color code things or highlight, it just makes it easier at a glance for you to see exactly what must be done. Then, where are you going to study? We have to choose a place where we are going to study, and when we are looking at where we will be studying, whether it is our bedroom, whether it is the dining room at the house, whether it is at school that I'm using an old classroom that after school hours that a teacher is allowing me, you need to sort out where you are going to study. When I make these decisions, I have to ensure that there are absolutely no distractions available in this area, which means I put my phone away. I put my laptop away. I do not face a television while I am studying, because those are all huge distractions, which means that I am going to go and think, I'm just quickly going to check a message on my phone, and half an hour later I'm still on my phone because I'm busy on social media or doing something else on my phone. And it is so, so important that we do not lose time, especially now in this time of the year. So please pack away all distractions while you are busy studying, as this will give you the best possible opportunity to be the best that you can be. Make sure that you have a desk or table where you can sit and work at, that you have a comfortable chair to work on, to sit on, because it is so important that you are comfortable while studying. But please do not sit on your bed and study, because your body is automatically going to think, now I have to sleep. So it is so, so important that you sit down in a dedicated area with a desk and a chair that you are going to study, because then you train your body that when I am sitting in that place, I am going to study. Then make sure that you have everything that you are going to need available to you in the area that you are going to use to study. So all your textbooks, all your workbooks, all the notes, all the summaries you've made, all the necessary stationery. If you are studying math lit or mathematics or physical science, anything that needs the use of a calculator, make sure that you have your calculator there. Do not sit down and start studying and then halfway through a page realize, oh, but I don't have my pen, or oh, I need my calculator, and get up and go and look for it. It is so important that we are prepared when we walk into the area where we are going to study, that I know I am ready, that I have everything that is needed at my fingertips, that I don't distract myself by going to look for things. So please, it is imperative that we have all the books, notes, summaries, stationery, calculators available to us at a touch. Then, practicing with old question papers. It is such a good thing to practice with old question papers, and old question papers have been sent through all the different links. If we go to the Free State Department of Education website, the old question papers are loaded there. You can download them. A lot of teachers have sent it on all the subject groups in the school, the WhatsApp groups. So they are available everywhere. There is also on the Play Store and Apple Store old question papers available. The links are available everywhere. The subject advisors have been sending it through. So please make sure that you connect somewhere to get these old question papers, because without them, you will not know what to expect. So when we talk about old question papers, it is imperative that you practice, practice, practice. I cannot emphasize this enough. It is so important that we keep on practicing these old question papers, so that we see in which manner the questions are asked, what the question is really asking of me, so that I know exactly how I should formulate my answers. If I know how the questions are asked and what is asked of me, and I understand what to answer, that is half the battle won. So with old question papers, please make sure you have access to both the paper and the memorandum. It is so important that we have access to the memorandum, that you can check yourself after you've worked through the question paper. But please take note that I say check yourself after you've answered the question papers, because it doesn't help us study only the memo, the question and memo of any old question paper, because most subjects do not recycle the questions. They set every question paper up from scratch. So by working through old question papers, I know the following. I know if I understand the content, I know how the questions are going to be asked, so that I know exactly how to formulate my answers. So it is imperative that I practice with old question papers to see that if I did all the work necessary to get the marks that I need. So not study the memo, but working through the question papers before the time. Only checking my answers to the memo after I've worked through the question paper. And this will definitely show you, should I put some extra effort in? Have I done everything I can? Am I performing at my very best ability? Because this is your future. Please do not fool yourself by studying the memo. You need to put in the hard work now so that you can have a bright future ahead of you. You may also answer all question papers under exam conditions. For example, if I look at English paper 1, it is 2 hours for 70 marks. So if I'm going to answer it in exam conditions, that means I must give myself 2 hours and not a minute longer to answer that question paper and see if I can answer the questions in the given time frame. If I cannot, then it means that I still need to put in quite a bit of work. Goal setting. It is so important that we set goals for ourselves whilst we are studying. Not just goals for after school, but goals whilst we are studying. Because we want to make sure that we cover everything in a study session that I've set aside. So setting goals for myself in every study session means that I am reaching everything that I have to, and I'm putting in all the work that I have to in that specific study session in order to get all the work done. But then again, it is also important that we do not set unrealistic goals for ourselves. Please do not say, I am going to, in the next 2 hours, finish reading an entire novel, or finish reading all my first additional language short stories and summarize them and answer all the questions. That is unrealistic. We need to put in the necessary time and dedication into each aspect of our studies so that we can be successful at the end of this. So setting goals will make sure that I stay on track with my study plan, because it's so important that I stay on track and don't fall behind. Remember, we set realistic goals. Then it is important that when we do set these goals, that we do it to motivate ourselves, that I know that I have finished the section that I've set out, the goals that I've set out for myself, I've reached. If I set unrealistic goals, I'm going to demotivate myself, and that is also not the right thing that we need right now in the time frame that we have now. So very important that we stay motivated, stay set to task, make sure that we reach our goals, the realistic goals that we set for ourselves. But also do not set such easy goals that you don't reach all the study material that you are supposed to. Then if we look at types of goals that I can set. For example, if I say this morning I am studying business studies and I want to finish chapters 1 to 4 and summarize it, I give myself the entire morning. I don't give myself 1 hour for that, because 1 hour will never be enough. I give myself enough time to work through the work that I need to in order to make the summaries that I need to, so that when I do my revision the day before the exam, it is not actively studying but revising, because I've finished actively studying. So then I have my summaries at easy access to be able to do it. Or I can say in that afternoon I'm going to complete 2 past question papers for, let's use business studies again, paper 1. And I know that business studies paper 1 is 2 hours long, so I set aside at least 5 hours for myself to complete these 2 question papers. Remember, we said 2 hours for 1 question paper, and then give ourselves a leeway of half an hour per paper to check your answers and go through the answers to see where you are still lacking, where you need to still put in some effort. Now, study methods. This is really important, because we must remember not every single learner studies in exactly the same way. You need to find out what method works the best for you. And we must also remember that one study method does not accommodate all subjects. If I have a more practical subject like mathematics, that means I have to put in more practice. But if I have a more academic-based subject like business studies, where I have to really study and I need to know all the points off by heart, then I will have to find a different study method, because practical is not going to work with that. So it is so important that you know that you choose a study method that works best for you. If we start thinking about study methods, it is oftentimes important for learners to, for example, record themselves. In the day and age that we live in, I studied best that way, by recording myself and listening back to the recording whilst I taught myself the work. So for some learners that works very, very well. For other learners, maybe you study better with color. So making your summaries in different colors or highlighting specific words and areas that you know is very, very important will make it easier for you to study. And we want to find ways that will be easy for you to cope with the study load that you have. Using flowcharts or diagrams is a brilliant way to summarize a lot of information on one page, because at a glance I can see all the information that I need, and I can just go back to my flowchart, because if I've studied enough and studied while I made my flowchart, I know exactly which fact goes where, and that will help me see a lot of information in a very short space of time and on a very small piece of paper. So a flowchart or a diagram will work brilliantly for things like business studies and economics, where we have a lot of information and a lot of long questions that you need to study, and a flowchart or a diagram will be so much better for you to be able to see all the information that you need on a specific question on one page. By recording your notes and things like that, please, some learners study better by moving around. It is very, very important that you figure out what works for you, but also figure out what is needed for the subject. It is imperative that we actually realize that just reading our work like a novel or a storybook will not help us study. Studying is you actively participating with the work. So that means reading it, making sure that you make notes on everything. It's not just reading. And the work is not going to jump into your head if you put your textbook under your pillow. Please, 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 you need to put in the work. You've worked a whole year very, very hard, and now it is time for you to actually finish, last push, make sure you study as well as you can. So reading alone is not enough. You will have to read and make notes or summarize or make the flowcharts or use colored pens to indicate certain things. Very, very important that we find what study method works best for us. Taking breaks, and I said we would be talking about taking breaks now, later on. And if we think about it, if I am studying, if I am concentrating for 5 hours non-stop, my brain is going to be so tired. So it is so important that we take breaks in between. The recommended breaks is usually 15 minutes after an hour's study, just to make sure that you refresh your mind, that you can refocus again and just get your concentration back, because as human beings we cannot concentrate for hours and hours on end. It is so important that you break every hour for 15 minutes, no longer, please, and that you then set aside a specific time every day that you take a long break. For example, an hour to spend time on social media, to have screen time, to watch some television, to go and walk outside, to spend time with family or friends in that hour every day. So it is so important that we do make sure that we take these breaks, that we take care of ourselves, because if you are burnt out, you are not going to be able to take in all the information that is needed. During a break, think about, reflect on the work that you've just done, think about what you've studied, move away from the area where you are studying. It is so important that you move away, that you give your brain that necessary time that it needs to just refresh itself, refocus, even if it is just walking around the house for 15 minutes to get your blood pumping again, because you've been sitting down for a complete hour. So really important that we use these breaks effectively. So by reflecting on what I've just studied and then taking my mind completely off everything is really good for those 15 minutes, so that I can focus again for another hour in the time that we then spend studying further. And just remember, it is important that we take care of ourselves. If I want to take a power nap for 15 minutes in that time that I'm taking a break, do it. Because if you cannot concentrate, then you cannot study. So we need to look after ourselves in this time, especially because it is so imperative that you don't miss a subject, that you don't miss a paper, that you do the best that you can, because it's time wasted if you miss an exam due to oversleeping or due to illness because you allowed yourself to get sick because you weren't looking after yourself. So it is so, so important that we look after ourselves in this time. And just remember, the earlier you start studying, the more breaks you can take. So if I start at 6 o'clock in the morning, that means I have an extra break at 6 o'clock to 7:15. And so it goes on. Another hour, so from 7:15 to 8:15, I study full time. And then from 8:15 to 8:30, I take a break. And so it carries on throughout the course of the day. Remember to make sure that you take your lunch breaks and that you eat healthily in this time. Ask for help. It is so, so, so important that we generally ask for help if we do not understand. Our teachers are all willing and able, and this is why this program is here, to make sure that you get the necessary help that you need as well. So if we don't understand something while you are studying, make notes. Because it doesn't help I run to a teacher every 15 minutes with one question only. In this time that we are studying, it is so, so, so important that you make notes on what it is you are struggling with, and where you need the necessary help. So make a list. And then you take that entire list to your teacher. And if your teacher if you don't understand your teacher very well, take it to another teacher. Go ask one of your friends. Go ask a tutor. There are so many people that you can ask in and around our communities. So make sure that you make the notes so that you know exactly what you are struggling with, so that we can assist you in the ways that you need to be assisted. This is very, very important. So making your list about everything that you don't understand is imperative while you are studying. If you realize you don't understand something the day before an exam, your time has basically run out. So please do yourself the favor, put in the time and the effort while you have the time now. Go through your work, see what you're struggling, see what you don't understand, and ask for help. Because if you do not ask, we don't know to help you. So ask whoever you feel comfortable with asking for help to help you through this, and so that you can understand. You need to be able to understand all the topics that have been covered throughout the course of the year, because no teacher can give you a scope now. There's no way anybody can give you a scope, because nobody knows what's in those papers. So you need to be able to cover all the topics and answer questions on all the topics covered throughout the course of the year. And this is why getting help is so, so, so important. Being part of a study group might make it easier for you. And when we say a study group, I'm saying a group of friends or a group of students sitting together studying actively, not chatting about what happened over the weekend, not doing other things that we think might impress our friends in the study group. When we talk about a study group, we mean that we are actively sitting together and helping each other. Helping each other study and helping each other understand all the work. Because if we start studying in a group, that means that I have people that I feel comfortable with, that I can ask questions. And sometimes it helps if I hear work explained in a different way than what my teacher explained it to me, so that I can understand it fully. So if that helps you, please do not hesitate to form the study groups. But again, I'm going to reiterate, please use this time wisely to study to the best of your ability. Now, we need to take care of ourselves. It is so important, because if we start thinking about the care that we have to put in for the time that we have to study, it is so, so, so important, because we have to participate in self-care in this time to make sure that mentally and physically and emotionally we are healthy. Because during an exam, this is very, very important. We need to ensure that our health is Very well, good. And there is a couple of things that we can do with this. We need to sleep at least 7 hours every evening. If you don't sleep enough, it means your brain is tired and you cannot concentrate to study better. If my brain is tired and I have to go into an exam room, that means I'm not going to remember all the work that I've studied. So sleep is imperative at this stage. If you don't sleep enough, you are not going to be able to cope well in this time that is ahead. But sleeping well and oversleeping is two different things. This does not mean that you can now go and sleep for 10 to 12 hours a day. No. Minimum of 6 to 7 hours must be slept, but no more than 8. Because you need your brain fresh, but you don't need your brain overtired or overslept. So please make sure that you find this gap for yourself. Then we must remember the food that we take in plays a huge role in how healthy we are. Cut down on junk food if you can. Limit the use of energy drinks. It is so important that we realize that eating healthy and drinking lots of water is what you need now. Limiting caffeine use, limiting energy drinks, because these things can make you so ill, and it can cause you to not be able to write your exam because you are on a caffeine high and you cannot concentrate properly. So I am begging you to make sure that your diet is healthy in this time. It is only for your own best interest. Exercise regularly, because if I exercise, I am revitalizing my mind and my body. I am making sure that my brain and my body is refreshed. Exercising makes sure that there's more blood and oxygen pumping to your brain and to the rest of your body, so you feel better about yourself. And in this way, you also build your immune system as one side of it, but also you give yourself a chance to make sure that the work sinks in. By taking a little bit of time, and whilst I'm exercising, I can review what I've studied previously. Think about what I still need to do, how I should tackle the next study session. This is so important. We need to be able to concentrate on our studies fully. So cutting out all of these bad things like junk food, like energy drinks, making sure I exercise, sleeping enough. This will ensure that I will be able to concentrate to the best of my ability. Because we need to really put the time and effort into ourselves now so that we can reap the benefits of this later. Make sure you take a multivitamin if it's possible for you to build your immune system even further, so that you know you don't get sick. By taking an extra multivitamin, by taking extra omega oils, things like that, you are making sure that your immune system is built up and that you don't miss an exam. Because please remember that if you do miss an exam, the rewrites only take place next year. So you are wasting at least 6 months of your life by not writing an exam. So it is so important that we take care of ourselves. And then make sure that you eat enough brain food. So when we talk about brain food, this is foods that make sure that I boost my brain activity. Like things containing a lot of B vitamins, like foods containing omega-3 oils, which means that you are feeding your brain to ensure that you are getting all the necessary vitamins and minerals and nutrients to your brain and your body, so that you make sure that you are as healthy as possible. Now, if we've looked at everything you've done so far, you've done your time studying, you've put in the time and effort doing your revision the days before, you've eaten healthy, you've made sure you've gotten enough sleep, you have set your goals for yourself, now you think you are ready for the exam. What happens on that day of the exam? It is so important that we realize that on that day of the exam, I am not, and I'm going to repeat this, I am not supposed to study on that day. And this is important for you to remember, because on that day, I have put in the work, I've done my revision, I know my work. On the morning of the exam, I need to ensure that I've slept enough, that I have a good breakfast, because it's so important that we eat before we go and write an exam. You do not want to faint during an exam. You do not want to fall asleep during an exam. So it is so, so, so important that we ensure that we look after ourselves, especially on the day of the exam as well. So I've eaten my breakfast, I've had my 7 hours of sleep the night before. Now I go to my bag. What must be in my school bag before I go and write the exam? First of all, your admission letter, because you will not be permitted to enter a venue without it. Your ID document must be with you at all times. Then all the stationery you need, because remember now, this is your final exam. This is an external exam. The schools are only accommodating the exams. The schools are only running the exam for the Department of Education. The schools are not the ones that are going to mark these papers. So you need to ensure that you take everything that you need with. If you are lucky enough and your school supplies some stationery, then if you forget something, you have a backup. But on that day, you will not be able to borrow anything from anybody in the exam venue. So it is imperative that you check your bag before you leave the house. What must be in it? Your admission letter, giving you admission to the venue to write your exam. Next is your identity document, so that they can see who you are. Then all the stationery you need. So now I've packed my bag and I'm on my way to school to write my paper. It is imperative that I don't study that morning, that I don't go through my notes again and again, because you are going to confuse yourself. And then another thing, it is so, so important that you don't fall in that trap with talking to your friends before the exam about the subject and how much I studied and did you do this and did you do that, and because you are going to confuse yourself, you are going to cause yourself to panic. If you know you've done your best and you've put in all the work that you needed to put in, you are ready. So it is so, so, so important that you stay away from talking about what was studied, what do you think about this, what do you think about that, and just focusing on the paper that you will have to write, because your friends will not be able to write that paper for you. So instead of confusing yourself by talking to friends and studying in that morning before the exam, rather put it away, because you have done what you needed to do. You have put in the work and you've made sure that you have done everything that you needed. Then motivate yourself. This is part of that self-care I was talking about earlier. Self-care is motivating and making sure that I can do this. If you have to do daily affirmations, if you have to write motivational quotes on little cards and stick it all over your room, do it. Because you need to stay motivated from the first day of the exam to the very, very last day. And I know it seems long. It is a long, long time that you are writing exams. But you need to keep yourself motivated now. You've put in all this hard work throughout the course of the year. Do not let yourself down now by getting demotivated. So, use motivational quotes. Stick them everywhere, whether it is in the bathroom, on the mirror, while you're brushing your teeth, you can read it, whether it is on your bedside table, whether it is on your bedside lamp. So before I get into bed, I see it the last time, and when I wake up, it's the first thing I see. Make sure that these motivational quotes are everywhere so that you can stay motivated throughout the entire exam. You are going to get tired. You are going to want to give up at some stage. But now is the time to keep yourself motivated and realize that I cannot give up now. We are so close. So let's put in the time and the effort that is needed now to stay motivated for every exam. Make sure you read your question paper thoroughly. So when I get my question paper, when I'm in that exam venue, it is so important that I use my reading time that is allocated to me, the 10 minutes before we write a question paper, that I use that time constructively. Read through my questions. If I always want to see the long question first to see if I am ready for the long question, to see which ones they are asking, go to the back of the paper first then. But use your reading time constructively. Don't just sit there and stare into space during reading time, because you are wasting valuable time. Because whatever I can read before the time, whatever questions I can understand before I actually write my question paper, the better off you'll be. Remember that in your reading time, no pens or pencils are allowed. This is strictly for reading. So use that time for what it is intended for. Read your questions. If I read my questions thoroughly, and if I read with understanding, that means that I will be able to answer the questions. And yes, there is a big difference between reading for understanding and reading for answering. If I read a question to answer it, I might not understand or get the full gist of what the question is asking me. Whereas if I read to understand, I understand the question first, which means that answering that question will be so much easier by the time I have understood the whole question. So we need to start preparing ourselves in that we have to read for understanding and not for answering. Then set a time allocation for each section and stick to it. A lot of question papers gives you time allocation in the beginning of the paper. Use that time allocation. If it says that for a comprehension test they give you 40 minutes, use the full 40 minutes for that comprehension test. If they set aside 20 minutes for a language question, use the 20 minutes that they've allocated. Please, 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 do not rush through your question paper. I cannot enforce this enough. If you rush through your question paper because you just want to get it done, you are not going to understand all the questions that are asked of you. But if I take my time, if I read for understanding, if I am making sure that I have a time allocation per question and I'm sticking to it, then I will get through this exam successfully. It is so important that we stick to the time allocation. And if I do get finished with a question before my time has run out, I can go on to the next question, which means at the end of the paper, I'm going to have some time available to me to go back to my question paper and see if I've understood all the questions being asked of me and if I've answered it in such a way that I am happy with my answer, that I will get the marks that I deserve. But if I rush through the paper, I'm going to have too much time available to me afterwards. And when we say use your time, if a question paper is allocated 2 or 3 hours, use the full 2 hours, use the full 3 hours, because you are here fighting for your future. Not for my future, not for your parents' future, but your own future. So it is so, so, so important that you make sure that you use your time allocated to you and use all of the time. Because you will reap the benefits of this afterwards. Then, do not rush through the paper. Do not leave any questions open. If you write nothing, I can't go and have a look where there are any marks for you. If you write something, the marker can have a look and see whether there is any marks to be allocated. Please, don't do yourself the injustice of leaving gaps in your question paper. It is so important that we realize this because we throw marks away. If I leave, for example, a 6-mark question open, that means I've taken 6 marks, I've crumpled it up and I've thrown it in the trash can. That means I'm not going to be able to stand a chance to get those 6 marks. So it is so, so, so important that we do not leave any spaces available or open, and so that we know we've tried our very best on every single question. Check your answers when you are done. If you've left something open, go back. Go make sure that you read the question again. See if you can understand the question in its entirety. Reading for understanding, not for answering. And that way we can ensure that I do not lose any marks, or that you don't throw any marks away, because if I don't answer something, that's basically throwing it in the trash. So very, very important that on the day of the exam, we remember all of these things. Make sure you have a little checklist for yourself, that you know you take everything that you need, that you know that you have to stick to your time allocation. So please, do make sure that you have everything that you need before you go into an exam. Do not leave any spaces open. This is so important. Then lastly, just a couple of general tips. I'm going to reiterate, you need 6 to 8 hours of sleep every night. If your brain is tired, it won't function properly. By getting enough sleep, it means that I can concentrate properly. Every learner should study a minimum, please, I'm going to repeat this, a minimum of 6 to 8 hours a day. A day has 24 hours. If I'm sleeping, for example, 6 hours of that day, that means there is 18 hours left of that day. Use those 18 hours productively. Minimum 6 to 8 hours of study. Remember now, we have our 15-minute slots in between each of those study sessions. So, it is so important that we make sure that you get all the work done that is necessary. Then, it is advisable to get yourself used to the exam conditions. If I'm used to the quiet of the exam conditions, especially if I am answering old practice papers, that means that when I get into the exam venue, it won't be anything new to me. It won't be funny. I will be used to the quiet and the calm. Make sure that when you walk into an exam venue, that you calm yourself. That is why we always say, be there early. Make sure that you're there early enough that you can find your seat, your allocated seat for the day. Make sure that you're there early enough that you can meditate if you need to, that you can calm yourself down, that you can do breathing exercises to make sure that you are ready. Because it doesn't help you running in there and you are already 10 minutes late and you are flustered and you're already so stressed that you cannot focus properly. By coming early to an exam venue, you make sure that you are centered, that you are calm, and that you can answer the questions and the question paper to the best of your ability. We can't do things to the best of our abilities if we are stressed and frazzled. So it is so important that we make sure we are there early to calm down. If I am listening to music while I'm studying, can I listen to house music? No. When I listen to music while I'm studying, I must remember that the music must be soft. So it doesn't help I'm blaring the house music in my ears and listening to my favorite DJ, pumping the jams. That's not the time to listen to that. You will have a lifetime ahead of you after this exam, where you can do all of those things. If I listen to music during my study times, it is preferable that you listen to music without lyrics, that it is played softly in the background, that I listen to more instrumental or acoustic music, light classical music, ambient music. So something just to take the absolute silence away can be done. But please, your favorite party jam is not going to work for your studies. So soft music and generally more low-key, instrumental, no lyrics. Because let's face it, if your favorite song comes on and you know the lyrics, you are definitely going to sing along, and then you won't be studying any. And then, one of the last things I want to reiterate again with you, do not cram your work. Do not wait until the day before you have to go and write an exam before you open a book for that subject. It is so important that we realize that we cannot cram all the work in one day. Because if you think about it, in some subjects you have a foundation that was laid in grade 10 and built up in grade 11, and you are still continuing with that work into grade 12. How are you going to get 3 years worth of work memorized within one day? That is impossible. So please make sure that you set up your study timetable, that you set time aside, that you do not procrastinate, because by procrastinating, you're shooting yourself in the foot. It is so important that we start early and make sure that we don't have to cram the work. Because if I cram, I might forget the work. If I cram the day before the time, it means that I create a snowball effect. If I cram, I'm not going to get enough sleep because the work is too much for one day to study, which means I'm going to be tired. Whilst I'm cramming, I'm not going to take the necessary breaks that is needed. So my brain is going to be overstretched in that sense. And then I might even oversleep the next morning because I've crammed and I've slept so little that I have to leg it to the venue and I am late. And then what happens? You sit there and all of a sudden you hit a blank. I don't want that for anybody at all. So it is always advisable not to cram your work. The day before an exam must only be used for revision. I hope these tips help you and that you do well in your exam. My thoughts and prayers go with every single matriculant right across the country. I honestly hope that you have put in the time and effort and that you can reach all the goals that you have set for yourselves. I thank you so much and good luck with this exam that is upon us. Goodbye.